Hello to those of you who have popped in so far. We're going to wait until 10 o'clock to start. Hi, everyone who's popping in. I'm just going to give us a couple more minutes and then we'll get started pretty close to 10 o'clock here. Hey, hello, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started because we do have a lot to cover today. I know people are still trickling in, but we're just going to go ahead. So, hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Jessica Hoarn, and I'm a program manager with Career Services Administration, and I oversee Handshake here at the U. We do have a couple of housekeeping items before we start. I am going to record our meeting, so I'm actually going to start that right now, and then I will be sharing that recording after the fact. So let me make sure I've got that started. Oh, I've already started recording. Well, there we go. So let me just triple check on that because I really don't want. Okay, I think we're good to go. Also, please, I'm not going to be monitoring chat during this presentation. I'm going to take a quick look just to make sure, okay, if there's any audio problems or things like that, please just unmute yourself if you feel comfortable letting me know. Otherwise, please put any questions that you have in the Q&A or unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. And feel free to interrupt me at any point during the presentation. Otherwise, I am not going to monitor Q&A either until the end. But I'm hoping to leave a good stretch of time for Q&A so we can delve more into some of this stuff. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and get started here. We're going to start out with a poll to see kind of who's here with us. So the two questions for the poll, let me get that started. I'm launching it. Okay, let's just take about 20 seconds. So How long have you been coaching students with Handshake? And then how comfortable are you coaching students with Handshake? Let's take about 15, 20 seconds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and it looks like just going to share the results real quick. So we have quite the spectrum here today, which is great and helpful for me to know as we go through this presentation. But it looks like the majority are at least somewhat new to Handshake and either not comfortable or kind of in the moderately comfortable range. So that's wonderful to know. Okay. Let's hear. Our agenda for today, we'll go over some Handshake by the numbers, just a couple of data points to give you a scope of what we're talking about. We'll do a walkthrough and then talk about some tips. And as I mentioned, we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So Handshake by the numbers. This is an overview really, and I'm going to go through this somewhat quickly. And then I'll show you where you can actually delve into some of these numbers a little bit more on your own if you're interested. So Handshake gives our students access to 43,000 employers. It's over that number. 77,000 U of M student and alumni users, and those are users who have logged into the platform and have used the platform. And then it also gives our students access to over 12 million peers from the other institutions that use Handshake. In the past year, we had over 30,000 students apply to almost 300,000 internships and almost 200,000 jobs. And then these are the top 10 industries on Handshake from the past year based on the jobs that employers are posting. So I'm not going to hang out here long because, as I said, I'm going to show you where you can delve into that more if you're interested. But this is also this is a map showing the scope of those postings. So there are job postings available, job and internship postings available around the world. And then, so this is where you can find more of this information if you'd like. I'll also be going into showing a brief demo of analytics later in Handshake, but we have a data dashboard. So this is for more U of M specific data, and it's publicly available to staff, students, and employers. It has filterable graphs and charts, and it shows, here I have a couple of screenshots of the types of things it shows. So it shows where jobs are posted. And so you could go into this graph and you could filter it by job role, by industry, you can filter it by a number of different things. So then it also talks about when jobs were posted, postings by job role, what kinds of organizations are posting jobs. There's a lot more on there. So this one is specifically geared towards the dashboard. There's one that's specifically geared towards students, and then there's one that's specifically geared towards employers. And each dashboard shows historical data since we joined Handshake in 2018, and then we add new data each semester. So the data on there, though, is historical. It's up to date to the past semester, but I'll show you how you can, later I'll show you how you can go in Handshake and get current data if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so I just did briefly look at chat and don't see anybody saying that there's issues with audio and anything like that, but please do let me know if something's going wrong. I'm just going to keep going though. Okay. Oh, and I want to say for anybody who may have joined us in the past couple of minutes that I won't be monitoring chat during the presentation. I'll be looking at Q&A after, so please put any questions in Q&A rather than chat. And you are also free at any point to unmute yourself and ask me questions. Okay, so now we are going to go through a walkthrough. I had mentioned that, well, here, let me go back to this. So I had mentioned that there would be somebody from Handshake joining us today, which she was not able to join us. but she recorded a walkthrough for us. So I'm going to put that walkthrough up. We're going to listen to that. It's a somewhat brief walkthrough, and then we'll go more in depth into all the things that she is talking about. So let's pull that up. First, though, I do want to talk about what we will be covering and what we won't be covering. So we'll be talking about profiles, optimizing job searches, career research, building connections, analytics, and tips on explaining Handshake. We won't be covering appointments or experiences because procedures for appointments and experiences are handled at the college or the unit level. So your super user is the best contact for training on these features. And I'm going to show you later where you can find your super user if you don't know who that is. And if those super users don't feel equipped, or you are the super user and you don't feel equipped, you can always come to me, but just know that we won't be talking about those in today's training. So let me launch this here. All right, and then even though I just said I won't be monitoring chat, please do let me know in chat if you can't hear this video well. I will look at it just really briefly once this gets started.
Hello. We're going to do a brief demonstration of the student side of Handshake with a focus on student profile and career interests, as well as jobs and employers. So to get us started, the first place we're going to want to start is in the upper right-hand corner under the initials. So you can see here that students have access to their profile, jobs, meetings, documents, career interests, and so forth. We're going to start at the student profile. So from here, you can see there's quite a bit of information, an overarching profile of the student, education section. The piece that I want to focus on is profile completion. So here you see that the student has their primary education section added, but could increase their profile completion if they were to add a work experience or add organizations, as well as information in other fields of the profile. Profile completion is something to focus on because the more information that a student provides, the more we can personalize their recommendations. So based off of the information a student enters into their profile, they'll be able to discover jobs and internships that are more relevant to them. Employers are also more likely to proactively reach out to students with job opportunities and event invitations if the student profile is complete. You'll also see some different ways that students can view their profile, whether that's to see it as the employer and see what their visibility settings are across the platform. Career interests, which we'll touch on next, can also be updated from the student profile, so more to come here. And then another key piece that we can see here is being able to discover more students and create connections and build relationships across the network. So if we were to click Discover Students, we can see a couple of different ways that students can connect, find information about each other, and just cultivate their networks. So while we can edit the career interests from the profile, students can also update their career interests under My Career Interests. So when students log into Handshake for the first time, they're prompted to complete their career interests, but they can update this at any given time from this screen, or as we've mentioned, the profile as well. So we know that career interests change, how students are using the platform changes, and we want to give them the opportunity to make these updates so that the system is also working in a way that's relevant for them as well. So right now we can see that I have full-time job selected as a career interest, but we can navigate to change that to internship and full-time, or just internship, right? How can Handshake help me? What am I considering doing after graduation? Right, and really leading into what are some job roles that you might be interested in? Location-wise, what are you interested in? Industries as well as functions. So again, we want to encourage students to complete this information, as this section, career interests, is one of the 3 primary areas of information that we use at Handshake for relevancy throughout the platform. So I'm going to save those career interests. and I'm going to pivot over to jobs. As mentioned, the three primary areas of information that we use at Handshake to determine job relevancy is the information that's in the student's profile, the student's career interests, and then the jobs and employers that the student engages with, which is why we're also going to talk about jobs and employers today from the student perspective. So if a student views, favorites, or applies for a job, the system shows them similar opportunities. If a student follows an employer or attends one of their events, the system shows them relevant opportunities that the employer has posted here in the job section. So for tips and tricks, a first piece to think about is utilizing the filters. So we have a few filters up here at the top, but we also have the all filters function. So some filters that sometimes get missed or really have a lot more power than might be considered is definitely the popular in your major filter. So you can select that and you'll see showing results, 20 jobs found. Again, we're in a demo environment, so this will be much more robust for your students. And then we can just simply unselect the filter if you want to change what information is shared here. Another great filter is qualifications. So you can select match all qualifications, but this nice caret here, if you pop that down, showcases an opportunity to focus in on major, school year, graduation date, or GPA. So if I were to select graduation date, currently listed as February 2024, I can see the jobs that would be a match for those qualifications. So from here, as you can see, because we've used a filter, this search has been saved. So you can save the search, you can edit the notifications at any time. So, right, this is the filter that's saved under internship search. Students can be notified via email, in Handshake, get a push notification via mobile, and they can determine whether they want to receive that alert daily or weekly. And then if you were to have a student who had, saved some searches previously, wanted to make adjustments to their current job filters or job alerts rather, you can head on over to notification preferences. And this is where these live. If a student wanted to use that same search criteria, they can simply click on their job alerts and it'll already have those preset filters for them as well. So another great thing that students can do is that they can save jobs. So again, this helps us to understand what the student is looking for and how we can surface relevant opportunities to them. Again, you'll see that it's because we've used this save icon and the opportunities for application as well. Filters are the primary piece that we would encourage students to utilize as they search for jobs, and then integrating a keyword search in. So as you could see previously, some searches have both filters and keywords. So if we wanted to look for work study positions, right, we could see some different pieces. If we were looking for, right, sales, it's going to delineate both of these things here. And if a student would want it to save their search, you can see that save that search button here as well, again, to set up that job alert. To transition from jobs and employers, let's see, always got to clear your filters. To search through jobs and employers and to kind of make that transition to see what does the employer perspective look like from a student lens, you can select the employer and it'll take you to their profile. We encourage employers to have robust profiles, just as we encourage students to. As you can see from this account, I'm following this employer. I could unfollow them or follow them again. And again, that following of employers helps to, again, make those relevancy for events and positions as well. So you can see here, there's some about information, contact information, students who've worked here. So again, cultivating those connections, sharing information, as well as different jobs that the employer might have as well. So if we wanted to navigate to the employers feature for students, As you can see here, it's got the employers that I follow popping up at the top as those are the most relevant for what I've indicated, but also the opportunity to discover more. So whether I'm utilizing the filters of the employers that I follow, utilizing some different, again, keyword search terms, location, utilizing those filters, and then utilizing the keyword searches. So we can take also a quick look at 3M's profile to decide if, that's an employer that we want to follow as a student. And so here I can see that there's a featured job. I match all the employer preferences in the student space. I can see different reviews that students have provided. I can see different interview information that's been provided, as well as current job opportunities that the employer has. Again, more information, whether that's images, general description, and then again, tips from 3M for students. So some more information to help students succeed and cultivate those connections with employers for success. News, upcoming events as well. And some different employee perspectives on why they might have had a great experience with 3M. So this concludes our very brief overview of the student side. There's much more within the student side that students can interact with and utilize within the system, but wanted to focus on those pieces today.
Okay, let me jump back over to our presentation. All right, so we will dive a little bit more into some of the sections that Laura, she is our point of contact at Handshake, that Laura talked about, and then in the Q&A later, or if you, like I said, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me questions at any point. We'll be hopping back into Handshake to demo some more things, and we can always go back and go into some of the stuff that Laura went over and demo that more in depth. So, but first let's talk a little bit more about tips on helping students with the job search. So tip number one would be to encourage complete profiles, saving jobs, and favoriting employers. As Laura mentioned, this really helps job searches be more relevant, and this is really important for relevant employers to find students. So that's a key thing if you're working with students who feel like they're getting messages from, irrelevant employers. One, they can now mute messages that they don't want from certain employers. So that's nice. But also, the more that they fill out on their profile, the more relevant employers will find them. Tip number two, search by job type and location, then job role and specific keyword. Basically, filters first, then keywords. Because of how the Handshake algorithm works, this is the sequence they encourage. So job type and location first, then job role, then specific keyword. That leads into the next tip. Share the important keywords for your majors and career fields. Searches will be the most productive if students know the words commonly used in position titles or job descriptions in their field of interest. Many of you probably know this, but a keyword search in Handshake is not like a Google search. So it will show the positions that have that keyword in the job title or anywhere in the job description. So if you can share, if you know important keywords, if you do specialize, and you can share those, or encouraging students to study job descriptions, noting down the keywords that they're seeing, and then using those in future searches, that can be helpful. Also experimenting with filters. So Handshake, this was probably one of the biggest questions, in that RSVP form, was just how to really optimize filters. There aren't a bunch of hidden secrets about Handshake. I'd say the biggest one is just their advice on job type, location, role, and then keyword, but also experimenting with filters. So trying to search by slightly different filters or adding just one filter at a time, and then only adding the filters that are necessary. It can be easy to accidentally filter out interesting positions. So encouraging students to browse through search results that do have fewer filters. I think the best example of this that I've heard was a a newer student who was looking at on-campus positions went in, saw all the filtering options and got excited about the filters and plugged a bunch of them in, and then saw, 0 or maybe 1 result. And then as she took some, this was actually a daughter of a career services staff member, so she knew how to coach her daughter. But so she started taking some filters off and then saw jobs pop up that she might not have necessarily thought of, but that then ended up looking really interesting. So that is a great example of experimenting with filters. The next one would be email digest. So Laura talked about this a little bit, but having students sign up for email digest based on saved searches or activity and interest. This just helps students automate some of the job search process. And then finally, sharing jobs, job roles, and employer collections with your students via targeted email. So I'm going to demo this in just a sec, but targeted emails allow you to promote either specific jobs or specific job roles or collections based on student demographics. So we are going to hop over quickly to Handshake. And I will show you where you can do this. So one thing, this does require a career services account, not just a demo student account. So if you're in your career services account and go to the left-hand side and go down under the communicate section, there's email. And then you just go, it's pretty, I think they've made this feature pretty easy to use. You would go to, you can kind of explore the different templates that they have, but I'm going to use promotions, and then we'll just do a test email, and then we'll go to next. So then once we're here, so you could be promoting events or jobs is what I'm going to demo, but over here is where you'll see, so there's some formatting options. You can change the color, you can change, the basic content, and then where it says Handshake content, this is where you could either insert a career fair, an event, if you're hosting an event, a job role. Let me show you what this looks like. So let's say we select electrical engineers. We'll use that example. I'm going to save it, and then it'll put the job role. So this is explaining, it's kind of a, overview of what electrical engineers do. And if you would click on that, then it takes you to the Handshake page with more information about what is the electrical engineer job role, top majors interested in this role, average salaries, top cities for this role. This is based on, in Handshake, and then explore other roles related. So that can be a great tool for career research in Handshake, but then we could also add in, I'm going back to Handshake content. You can either add a specific job if you know of one you want to promote to students, or if you go to employer collection, you'll see the collections that we have available. I'll talk about these a little bit more in a sec. But one of the things that you won't, so there's great for college. You could then choose the college, of course, that you're promoting this to. And there is the option of a great for major, so a specific major collection. However, these are currently not built out really. There may be a couple, but this would be something that if you're interested in having a collection that is for your majors, if you have employer engagement folks that you can talk to about that, working with them to build out that collection in your unit. If you do not have any employer engagement support, you can come talk to me about that, and I'd be happy to help. But that is a great option to target specific majors and just promote employers that are there are great opportunities for students, for your students. So we are going to, the rest of it I'm not going to demo because it's basically just clicking through. I suppose I would need to fill out more, but if you go next, then it just asks you to choose the students that you want to email this to. And so it'll ask you, you can choose students in different majors or different colleges. So we are going to go back to the presentation and then move on to, I do have one final note on the helping students with a job search. All students can apply for all jobs. So employers will see how many qualifications a student matches, but they can't prevent, and we can't prevent students from applying even if they're not qualified. So that's just something to know. So using Handshake for career research, let's hop over into this section. Because one of the things that's important to emphasize about Handshake is that it's not just a job board, that it does have, its job search features, but it's a great resource for career exploration and for building connections. So we'll just kind of go through the different buckets of Handshake and talk about how students could use them for career research. So in jobs, the students can use the major filter. Laura demonstrated this, but popular in your major. And that can help them see how industries align with a given major. They can look at common qualifications for jobs in a field of interest and looking at, does major matter? What majors align? What other qualifications are important? For events, attending employer info events for exploration. There are a ton of those on Handshake, and those are kind of, low cost events, meaning students can often just be a fly on the wall and participate and gain a lot of knowledge about different industries without having to heavily participate, although they can, or if they want to use it more for relationship building. And then start attending career fairs early to see what they're like. In the employer section, using that employer section that was demoed where you can search for employers, using that to do industry research, and then using the employer profile to research organizations and prepare for interviews. And then in the Career Center that Laura did not demo, and I will show you that in just a minute, but we have some great resources that are available to students through there. And that what can I do with this major and going global are two that are great for career research and exploration, but we have some other resources in there. So hop back into Handshake here. And now I'm going to go back to my career services profile, and then I'm going to hop over to my students profile. And just a second. Okay, and so if you go to the student's profile, or the student view, I'm sorry, of Handshake, then over in the left here, you can see Career Center. And that's where we are going. And then in Career Center, under resources. So in here, there are both. So the biggest thing I think we use this for currently is for those paid subscription resources that we offer to students. They can access them through here, going global. And we also use it to just promote different resources, and different career offices can also use it for just career advice articles. It can also be, it kind of shows up almost like a blog for students. So there are a number of different things in here. What you're seeing on my, demo is all the resources that are available to all students regardless of college. And then each college may have additional things for students. So information on Parker Dewey, information on avoiding scams. Then we have what can I do with this major, interview prep, projects from the Maroon and Gold Network. So this is linking, to the Maroon and Gold Network, another promotion for Maroon and Gold Network. This links to, we've collected some DEI statements from employer partners, and then Candid Career are kind of those big resources that we have for all students across the university, across campuses. Anyone can access these, and alumni. Okay. Hopping back over. Let's talk about how you can help students build connections. So there are certain things, I've kind of broken this up into what students can do by themselves without help from career services, and then what we as career services can do to help students out or as advisors. And the first thing for students would be message and virtually chat with employers. That's a great feature of Handshake. They make it pretty easy to do. They include a lot of little pieces of advice for students, even as they're creating a message to employers. And they really promote to employers. They encourage them to be available to students. Engaging in Q&A on a company's profile can be a great way to kind of put yourself out there. Peer messaging and students connections can be an easier place to start than messaging an employer. And then Laura demoed that you can find, discover more students on a student's profile, or if you're on an employer's profile, you can see previous students who have worked there. And it's great because you can actually search students, and you can search for other students that are U of M students that are in your major, either if they're from the U of M or not, or that have similar interests to you. On-campus interviews, that is a great way to get in front of an employer, and that can be a little bit tricky to find in the system. So I will, after we're done here, show you where you can find that real quick. And then, of course, attending fairs and events and checking in at employer booths, which this is a new feature this fall that many of our fall fairs had, where students can scan a QR code that's displayed at the booth, at the employer booth, and then every booth where a student checked in shows up on their Handshake profile. Employers also see a list of all students who checked in at their booth, which is great. And then they can easily follow up with each other, much more easily than before. Some resources too for this. I'm going to put a plug in for our Handshake newsletter. So there's a monthly Handshake newsletter that goes out to the AAN and CDN listservs. And in that last month, there was a short 30-second video that you could share with students to just promote that feature. And there was also a little infographic. So what you can do is encourage students to complete their profile. See a theme here. And just remember that the benefit of a completed profile, it makes it, so Handshake has a stat that it makes it twice as likely for a student to form a meaningful connection on Handshake. And I think they do a pretty good job of defining meaningful connection. So it means that the employer and the student interact with each other. It's not just that they've received a message. It's not just that the students reached out, but that they've gone back and forth in some kind of messaging or virtual chat. And then promoting events and jobs through targeted emails, as we just talked about, hosting an event with employers and alumni, promoting employer booth check-ins, and then working with employer engagement, if that's an option for you, to build out collections for your college or major so that you could promote those. Those are some things you could do. And then, and I kind of read through the alumni hub quickly, but I am going to go in and demo that real quick. So we'll hop back over to Handshake. I'll show you where you can find on-campus interviews, and then we'll look at the alumni hub. And then I'm actually gonna we'll stay in that environment for a minute, and I'll show you dashboards as well for analytics. So let's first find on-campus interviews. So there are two spots you can find this, just because it's a little bit hidden. It actually is a filter that can be searched for. So students can click this interviewing on-campus filter. Then they can go to, and this is where it's not totally, I don't know that I would think to go here, but if a student goes to, in their little drop-down menu under their initials, My Meetings, then there is a tab, and it also doesn't show up right away, that's on-campus interviews. And then they can search, and this is a little bit, this will show them like the full options for searching on-campus interviews here, and all of them that are happening on campus. So however, that being said, let's hop back over to the career services side. I'm going to go to switch users, and go to my career services account, and we will look at the alumni hub. So on the left-hand side, under the relationships category, you can click alumni. And as employers are onboarded into the system, they're asked where they went to school themselves, and anyone who puts University of Minnesota shows up here. Then, so we can search, and there are, let's check, over 7,000 alumni in here right now. We can search for them, or search based on different things. So let's just look at, let's say we want to know that the alumni is active in Handshake. So I want somebody who has posted a job and attended a career fair. And then we want them to be approved at the university. You could look at specific employers and look for alumni at specific employers. You can look by last login date. So let's say, I mean, you could, I won't do that right now, but you could say, I want to make sure they've been recently active. So they've logged in within the past 6 months. And I'm going to look at, let's say, manufacturing, and you can also look at, you could look at size, location, and then recruiting interest. So let's say I'm interested in an employer or an alum that's in manufacturing themselves and that is looking to hire engineers. And then I can find this whole list. That would probably narrow down a little bit if I had added a date filter and added a location, but this can be a great way to, connect students with alumni based on, a little bit more information about what the alumni is interested in. So then I'm going to go over here to dashboards. So this is the way that I recommend accessing analytics in Handshake. And there are basically 2 ways. I'll go down. So you access analytics, you go to the left hand under data, you click analytics, and there's a way that you can build out custom reports. That's absolutely optional to anyone. It does take some training though, and Handshake has a training course that you can use or that you can complete. I would say it's really important to complete that training course and to know what you're doing to some extent before using their custom reports. So that would be if you went in here and created a report, simply because it can be easy with this particular platform to get inaccurate data and think you have accurate data. There are just some tips and tricks that are important. But what they've done is they've created this dashboard section that's pre-built dashboards. You can trust that this, the information that you're getting in here is accurate. And I just highly encourage going in and just exploring this section if you haven't. I'm going to show the activity dashboard. Each dashboard is filterable by different options. Some of them allow you to get a little bit more nuanced. So this one you can only filter to the college level. Some of them allow you to filter to the major level or filter by job role or industry. But this one, so you could look at your college, for example, and see what students, like how active your students are, basically, how many applications, logins, how many of your students have uploaded a resume, the number of approved jobs by month. You can change the date range on this, how many interview schedules your college has had, or the U. This takes a little while to load, but it will show you. So in the past 3 months, for example, this is showing the jobs that have been posted in the past 3 months and where they are located, employer approvals, shows a lot of, different things. There are other dashboards that they've tried to kind of group things together based off of, so student engagement is another one I can show you. Let's look at that one, because I did see a question. I was peeking at the Q&A about can you pull a report on whether your students have filled out interest? And I'm curious about that one. I'm wondering if you can do that in custom reports, and I'm happy if we have time to look or to follow up on that. But I wonder if in this student engagement dashboard, I know it shows you, so in this one, for example, you can filter by college, but you could see, this is activation rate by major. So if you were to filter down by college, this would show you the majors in your college, weekly login sessions. And I know it shows you profile completion, but that is different than public profiles, community profiles. So it doesn't. But like I said, I will follow up on that question to see if a custom report could be built out. And this is something that if you're looking at these dashboards, they've got a lot of great stuff in here, but you might, get an idea of some data that could be helpful in your work, or that could be helpful to share with students, but it'd be more helpful if it were narrowed down. Let's say you need it at the major level and not at the college level. That's a great thing to talk to your employer engagement team about if you have that. And if you are a very small office or a one-man office, I'd be happy to talk to you about that if you're looking for a more nuanced report. So that's all we're going to talk about today in terms of analytics is really just, I want you to know about dashboards and know that that is there, because that can be, and there's a bunch of interesting stuff in here really. So just kind of an encouragement to go in and check that out. Okay, I think that's all we're demoing right now. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. All right. So we went through the Alumni Hub, we went through dashboards. We just have a couple more slides and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So tips for explaining Handshake. These are my tips. There are more. Handshake's got a lot of great information. They've got a blog, and they have a blog that has a section just for career services. But I would say that one, recruiters are specifically looking for early and transitioning talent on this platform. So even though it can look like another big job board, like, you know, Indeed or LinkedIn or, well, any of them, all the recruiters on Handshake are looking for entry-level candidates or transitioning talent. And typically, they are pretty eager to network. And like I said, Handshake really, they've been focusing a lot on employer education and a lot on just employer behavior in the network and the employer behaviors that they're trying to push. So that is something that is unique to Handshake. I would say also that it is much more than a job board. It's also great for career research, company research, building connections, that, you know, being proactive and reaching out to employers and other students is really how you're going to make the most of Handshake. Sharing analytics can be a great tool. And then this is more of a tip for on an ongoing tip, I would say, but signing up for the Handshake newsletter, unless you are, it does go out to the AAN and the CDN listserv. So if you're signed up for that, you will see it. But basically reading that newsletter. It's been reformatted recently. So moving forward, it is really geared toward trying to equip advisors and counselors and just people in a student-facing role with resources to help promote and teach Handshake. So it now has 3 sections. So there's a resource highlight. So those will be, you know, each month, just different resources to help staff and coaches. And then a product feature. So for example, last month, the product feature was the new employer booth check-ins. And so it had a video clip that you could share with students, or it had an infographic. And then each edition has some, like a graph or an infographic on some Handshake data. And it does also include in there how you can access the data yourself. Sometimes it highlights a dashboard, sometimes it's a custom build report. So if you're interested in learning more about analytics, it's also meant to help staff get more comfortable if they're interested in that. So, and then let's try to do this one quickly. This is just an example of how students can engage with Handshake at various stages of their college career. So this is an example, you know, based on an average 4-year track, but it's just more to give you an idea of the various levels of engagement that can happen with Handshake and how students can benefit at different stages. Of course, there is no right way. This is not the progression that should happen by any means. But yeah, I've said enough, I think, about that. So year 1, for example, filling out interest, researching jobs by major or industry, and then maybe the student uploads a first resume. So a student only has to fill out career interests for an employer to start finding them in their searches. Employers, when they search, they very, very often search by career interest, and that is how they find students to message. But it will also trigger a personalized news feed of jobs and events. Really at this phase, Handshake may be most valuable to aid in major exploration and to start researching possible career paths rather than as a job board. Year 2, this is an example of a student becoming more engaged with the platform, but still staying kind of behind the scenes. They may add an experience and organization to their profile, kind of start to beef that up a little bit. attend a low pressure virtual info session where they don't really have to engage, maybe attend a career fair but not participate, save a job search, sign up for an email digest, apply to internships and volunteer opportunities, and then find an organization of interest and message a student. They're not ready to message employers, but maybe they just want to start getting comfortable networking and message another student. Year 3, this is when a student is often becoming more proactive in their search. If they haven't already, now is a good time to upload a resume, to really start getting serious about building out their profile, actively attending career fairs and events, continuing to apply for internship, be more active in peer messaging, and maybe now they're using it for interview prep. And then they're starting to build out a list of organizations of interest by saving employers. Year 4, an example of full engagement. Student will want to make sure their profile is up to date. They have a resume on file. They're applying for opportunities after graduation, messaging and chatting with employers, engaging in organization Q&A sections, attending on-campus interviews, continuing to actively participate in events. And maybe they want to go in and refine their career interests now. Maybe now they know where they want to end up location-wise, so they want to add that, or their, interests have completely changed. So it is good to remind students to go in and update those career interests throughout their college career. All right. So handshake.umn.edu I at first had a long list of resources to share. These are all on this website. So simplifying this slide, I'm actually going to hop over and just show you the website quickly. There is a staff and faculty section, and then there's specifically a career counselors and coaches section. So it has resources to share with students, tips for helping students, information about pulling Handshake data. And then, and in there, if you were interested in custom reports, it has more information on how you could get access to that and get the training. And then it talks about how to email students in Handshake, and then just more training information if you do need more training. And then just the last thing would be to look out for the Handshake newsletter. So let's go to Q&A now. So as I said, I'm going to look at the Q&A box, but please do also feel free to unmute yourself. So it looks like, hang on just a sec. Okay, so the number one question or concern for MBA, MS students is, I get a lot of employer messages that aren't relevant. What should I do? I usually tell them to optimize their profile first. That's lovely. I like today's tip about muting unwanted messages, but is there anything else to improve the relevancy of messages from the employer? Also, can Handshake continue to work on improving this? Otherwise, I think students will start ignoring all messages. Absolutely. This has been a problem that Handshake is very aware of. So really it's the optimizing their profile is pretty much the only thing. Well, pretty much it is the only thing. I was just talking to folks at Handshake about this because it comes up frequently. So that being said, that is the only thing that we can really coach students on doing. There is now the muting feature for unwanted messages that completely came out of this feedback. And though I would say another big thing is that Handshake is working on employer education. One of the big things that they've done recently is they've totally revamped their job form, for example, and they've revamped how employers search for students. So both of those things should be, because it was very easy before for an employer to basically fill out a job, post a job to Handshake, and have it so that Handshake's algorithm couldn't really figure out what that job was about. Like they just kind of put their job description in there, but they didn't fill out any of the qualifications. Essentially, Handshake has created it so that there's now a lot more employer education in the job posting process and in the student messaging process. So it's kind of a wait and see thing because it's all sort of just now happening. And over the next year, I think is when we'll really see how much of an improvement it's been. But Handshake really does listen to feedback. Sometimes it takes them a while to respond to it because they always just are looking at a lot of data and they're very careful in how they, launch new product features, but they absolutely are listening. So know that they've been working on things, and that I'm hoping that in the next year and this semester, we'll be starting to see improvements with this. I'm hoping that the ability to mute employers will really help. Definitely encouraging students. I would say the career interest piece is something that students often will ignore that when they're signing up, and then not think about that when they're filling out their profile. But going in and filling out career interests, because employers, that's one of the number one things that employers search for when they're messaging students is career interests. So that would be a tip, but otherwise, continue. If you are able to give feedback to Handshake, if you have a career services account, there's an option for giving feedback, or you can share feedback with your Handshake super user or me. I'm happy to take feedback and send that to Handshake, and we'll just keep pressuring them on this. That was one thing. So on that website that I just showed you, let me hop over. There is a contact us button, and then it says staff contact your unit's Handshake super user. So that's where you can find your super user if you're not sure who that is. I'll come back to the question about, is there any way to run a report on if our students filled out the interest section? And then let me see this other question we have. So it sounds like students' algorithms are impacted about everything they click into. So if I go into the student's profile as view this user, do my clicks impact their algorithm? No, they do not. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay. If we don't have any more questions, I can hop into custom reports and see if I can find a report on filling out the interest section, which would definitely be kind of a niche topic. So if you want to hop off now, please feel free, unless open to other questions, just put them in the Q&A if you do have other questions, or unmute yourself. Okay. All right. Well, so I will hop over into analytics and look for that report. But for anyone who wants to jump off now, I will be sharing this recording afterwards. And please feel free to reach out to me at any point if you have follow-up questions. Your Handshake super user is also a great point of contact, and really should be the first point of contact, as they know your college-specific procedures and often your college-specific just problems that have come up. So, but my email is jhoarn, HOARN, @umn.edu. So thank you everyone for joining and being here today. And with that said, I will hop over to analytics for those who are interested. And I don't think this should take 5 minutes, so then we can just end promptly on time. Okay, so I'm going down to analytics, and I'm going to go to create report. And then, wait, hang on just a sec here. Okay, so I'm going to go to students. Oh, whoops. At the very bottom here. Now, one thing I should say is that if you have the ability, if you have a career services profile and you're curious if a specific student has filled out their career interest, you could go and view as student and then kind of peep on their profile. But let's see. So, I know we can do, so you can go in and you can do a report on, like, if you're interested, you can filter. So let's say we want to look at a specific college. I'm going to filter. Or how else could we have? You could also look at a specific year. You can look at specific majors as well. Where is that? Oh yeah, where? I'm figuring this out on the fly, so bear with me. Let's just do a test this out. This is something that I often need to do, is just kind of test. And this is why too, this is a great example of why some training is really important with custom reports. And I often will pull a report and then reach out to Handshake and ask, is this report accurate? Is this report showing me the data I think it is? Because it can be a little confusing. I mean, they have this interest section here, and then they also have interest broken down up here. It can just, there are different ways that it can sort of get confusing what you should be pulling. And I wonder if I look at, so let's pick, let's pick a Carlson student who is majoring in, why is it just showing me? Well, that's odd. I wonder if that's a glitch. So I should talk through what I'm doing. I'm trying to filter by major, but it's only, oh, here we go. Okay, now it's showing me actual different majors. So let's go into some sort of business major. I'm going to do applied business. I'm going to take Carlson off of here and just search by a major, but you could go in, you could search by a major. And you know what, now that I'm in here, I think I might need to follow up on this question. I think that if I do this, like it would just show me the number of students who, oh no, sorry, I need another, the number of students who have entered interests. Yeah, I apologize. I think I'm going to need to sit with this while I'm not under pressure. But what I am seeing from this is that there absolutely should be a way to, if you're talking about not necessarily, well, there's absolutely a way to pull reports on career interests. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with this, and then in my follow-up email where I send the recording, I will also send just an example report of pulling interest. And then whoever is interested in that kind of report, please just respond to me with the specifics of what you're interested in. So are you actually interested in like the names of students and what their career interests are that are reported? Or, which I think looking at this, we could get that. Or are you just interested in how many students in, you know, X, Y, and Z major have actually filled out career interests, so you know that based on the majors you work with, which ones need to be kind of prodded more to fill out their interests, that kind of thing. So more to come on that if you are interested in it. Thank you, those of you who have stayed with me till the end here, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And I will be following up with an email this coming week.